So you want me to tell you the story of my life?
Like I said, that's what I do. I interview people. I'm a collector of lives.
Welcome to Table Talk. I'm Heath, and I'll be your host. This is the show where I go one-on-one with a creator, author, illustrator, publisher, or other mover and shaker in the world of tabletop games, video games, TV, movies, or any other area of the geekverse.
You followed me here, didn't you?
Yeah, I suppose I did. You seem very interesting. This is where you live?
Yes, this is my home. Welcome.
So, what do you do?
I'm a vampire.
That's something I haven't heard before.
Guests have included individuals such as Lou Anders, the author of the Thrones and Bones fantasy novels, creator and publisher of the Norengard RPG, and even the author of Star Wars, A Pirate's Price.
Bond. James Bond.
Well, not James Bond. I haven't gotten to talk to him yet, but maybe sometime in the future. But how about Brian Cullen, the creator of the vast, grim, dark horror RPG and sculptor of the world of Revelo monster busts? Mark Tassin, the creator of the world of Italtus, head of Mechanical Muse, and the head developer of the new Cool Name RPG. I've spoken with Jeff Engelstein, game designer and former commentator on the Dice Tower. He and I got deep into the statistics, probability, and psychological function of dice in tabletop games. Jamie Stegmaier, the founder of Stonemaier Games and crowdfunder extraordinaire. He's published many hit board games like Scythe and Wingspan. I've spoken with Sydney Engelstein from Indie Boards and Cards to talk about what it really takes to publish a board game in today's environment and what it would take for you to get published if you were trying to get a publisher for your board game. I've spoken with Ajit George about game writing, education, and his contribution to Van Richter's Guide to Ravenloft and his development of the Journey Through the Radiant Citadel Dungeons & Dragons book. Let's see, who else have I spoken to?
I am Hela, Odin's firstborn, commander of the legions of Asgard, the rightful heir to the throne, and the goddess of death.
Yes, I really appreciate her taking the time to speak with me. That was a great interview. I've also spoken with Cameron Pasha, writer and novelist who's been working in Hollywood for over 20 years. His projects have included Emmy and Golden Globe nominated Sleeper Cell, Kings, Nikita, and Roswell, New Mexico. His analysis and commentary have been very popular on YouTube. I've gotten to speak with Paul Shadow, the former network executive who has made quite a splash here on YouTube with his reaction videos to current movies and films. He and I discussed the status of independent film and web productions online today. Brianna De Silva is a reoccurring guest on the show and a very popular one at that. She's an author and director, and she was also the co-writer of the Cultist comedy web show that's here on the channel. She and I regularly meet to study and analyze stories. I've also gotten to speak with of the Positive Fandom channel. She's an ally in our effort to be a positive and constructive force in the Geekverse. Are you ready? Have you got your drink? Are you all settled in? You might want to buckle up because it could be a wild ride. We're about to explore the worlds of tabletop gaming, sci-fi, fantasy, and the Geekverse through the eyes of those who are making things happen.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.
It's time for Table Talk. Good evening, everyone. It is so good to have you here. Welcome to Table Talk. This is our Thursday night edition, and I am very pleased to actually, this is basically a continuation of the subject that we were talking about this morning on the morning grind, because I'm pleased to be joined by two people this evening, actually. Ferruccio Argento and Dirk Vandereyken. I hope I said the last name right. I'm sure he will correct me, but they are the I see him smiling. They are the creators of the Blood and Doom role-playing game that is currently live on Kickstarter right now. I dropped a link to the Kickstarter already in the comments, and it is down below in the description. But let me just go ahead and put it right here again. Blood and Doom Kickstarter right here, so you can get to it. And I see people coming in like Charlie, Robert. We got a crowd here. Tomocrat, and I saw even James here. All right, let's just bring them on and let's just get to it. Dirk and Ferruccio, hello.
Hello, glad to be here.
Good evening.
So the first thing, do you guys want to introduce yourselves and just tell a little bit everybody about who you are and what you are doing with this project? So this is an RPG project. It's a massive project because it's both a setting and a rule system. And we kind of looked at what the setting, the rules, the structure of the rules were this morning. But that's what's going on here. Do you guys want to let us know who you are?
Dirk, you can start. You can.
I can start.
You have many more accolades than I, so please, yeah.
Well, first off, I'm not the creator of the game. I would say Ferruccio is. I'm just doing whatever my master is telling me what to do.
Oh my god.
I started writing from an early age on. I wrote my first novel when I was 11, got published when I was 14, and I won my city's Medal of Culture for that. And I've been writing ever since as a journalist, as the COO of the Association of European Journalists. I've been writing novels, tabletop role-playing games, audio scripts, movie scripts. I teach acting, singing, presentation, debating techniques, communication, hypnosis, etc., etc. I am a hypno and psychotherapist as well, and I guess I kind of combine all of those things in what you're seeing now. And also I'm a PR consultant running my own PR bureau, and we have quite a lot of experience doing public relations for tabletop games.
That is quite a lot.
But I try to make it as
How can I top this? How can I top this, Dirk? What are you doing?
Well, you're sometimes you're a little bit too humble about what you're doing, but it seems to me that you work as long a day as I do.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I guess I did bring this up, so we can, Ferruccio, but I guess I should show also, I brought this up so we can show it.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So this is the Kickstarter page right here, Blood and Doom. And it says a dark fantasy tabletop RPG rife with ancient mysteries, sinister cults, and terrifying monsters. So
it looks even better in dollars because it's more. Not by much, but a little bit, yeah.
So a lot of people, when they saw it, or I think what the interest on the morning grind this morning was that, it looks very Hyborian age. That gives across, of course, that the Conan kind of vibe upon the initial look of it. And so I think a lot of people tuned in this morning just for that. So we can go through the page. But Ferruccio, you want to introduce yourself and talk about your part of the project as the creator?
Yeah, so I am actually a music producer, so a lot less to do with writing and the whole direction of creative writing work and games than Dirk has much more experience in. So been doing that almost all my life, and just playing a ton of role-playing games. I've been playing, I think, since I started about 10 years ago. Got really, really into it. Always being the game master, making my own homebrew, stuff like this. And before you know it, you're tweaking things in such a way that you're coming up with your own ideas. Maybe you're writing up some pages for an idea for a project. And then Blood and Doom was born. So what I'm doing now is running Dice Tale Games. Blood and Doom is our first game. It's the first game that I have been a part of. For Dirk, it's already like his so manyth. And I'm doing the creative direction, the game design, co-writing, and like basically everything you can think of, except the artwork, of course, which is done by our many various, very talented artists.
You are doing the art direction, though, and that was one of
yeah, of course, yeah, but I cannot paint, like anything. But yeah. Oh, this is nice. You can see the 5 regions here, the 5 main regions. Yeah. As you can see, because you were talking about this Hyborian age, but there's a little bit more. The world is a little bit more magically infused, as you can maybe tell from some of the paintings. Mm-hmm. There's like these floating rocks that you can see in the desert. So there's a difference there, but from taking a look just at the core rulebook cover, there is a very large and muscular barbarian on there. So I can understand why people make that excuse me, that connection. Hmm. Those are some cultists that you just scroll by. Yeah.
I think the thing is that the setting is so diverse and varied that there's definitely some Hyperborean age in there, but that's like certain regions. So there's so many other regions and sub-regions and so much stuff happening on up there that I guess if you want to play it more in a Conan-esque style, you can, but it's not supposed to be that limited.
Mm.
Okay, so this project and this Kickstarter page just keeps going on and on and on. So
I know. People have told us, like, when is that? You can also, these are like all the individual items that make up the various pledge levels. So if you scroll a little bit further down, you actually get to the pledge levels themselves. So these are the miniatures. We've got a really nice lineup of miniatures. There's 9 characters, 9 monsters. Yeah, and we're now doing also as a stretch goal for each of the 12 cults, we're also doing a cultist miniature. Yeah, so here you can see some of the pledge levels. From the very first level, you'll be getting all the stretch goals. Digital stretch goals will be included. You'll get the soundtrack once, if that stretch goal is unlocked. You'll get the poster map, and then it starts going to the more the physical books, etc., etc. And this is one of the more popular tiers, actually, the High Priest B.
High Priest B.
B, because this gives you the deluxe slipcase set with all 3 hardcover books. Of course, everything that you get in hardcover, you'll also get for free as a PDF included with it. There's the adventure, there's the poster map, the Doomsayer screen in hardcover, the dice set, custom dice, all the card sets, and that's basically everything you can get aside from them the miniatures. And it struck me as kind of interesting that a lot of people back this tier instead of some of the somewhat cheaper tiers. But I guess it's very appealing because this is the most complete set, in my opinion, excluding miniatures that you can get, that gives you all the fun stuff and all the exclusives. So
I would agree. I think one thing we did, and one thing Ferruccio was really adamant on, is to create a game that's really easy to GM, with everything very, very well structured. And all of those accessories, I guess none of them are necessary, but they just make the gaming experience go so smooth, and they add so much to it just in the way of visuals, that it just becomes such a nice immersive experience.
Yeah, it's because I'm always the GM, and I can remember many an evening when I was GMing another game, which name I won't mention specifically, but it always gave me a headache at the end of the evening because you have so many things to manage. It is the initiative order, there's these monsters I have to roll. And so Blood and Doom is really built upon trying to make the experience just relaxed and fun for the GM, as well as that it is for the players. And you can see that in everything. The fact that it's player facing, the fact that these monster stat blocks are so much fun to use. Many other things in the game really promote this, like somewhat more, somewhat less pressure for the GM to run. And there's no set initiative order, so there isn't that to keep track of, etc. Yeah, so now you're going through the whole list, and then it ends. Yeah, so it's a pretty long page. Yeah, but of course you can find most of what you would like to know in the first bit of it, and then if you're interested, you can keep scrolling down. These are the stretch goals. There's more adventures coming. Roll20 will do maps, tokens, everything. Here's the new class that can be unlocked, the priest, and we'll do because there's 77 gods and spirits. Because in our opinion, with 5 such varied regions, as you'll see in Aether, the world the game takes place in, you'll automatically have different pantheons entirely, right? So in Ishta, most people worship like nature spirits, while in Athenia, they have their own pantheon of more like Roman or Greek gods that they worship. In Evendir also, and in Roshan, they actually worship the one true god. And we'll dive a lot more deeper into that with that stretch goal.
All right. I'm the cards that I saw for the first time as I was scrolling by. I'm a big fan of different cards as a gameplay aid. So look, you got condition cards, injury cards, traumas, healing
traumas, and injury. Traumas and injury are like so there's like the mental and the physical end of the spectrum. Conditions are what they are in most games. And they're just great to have available, and you can just hand them out to a player and say, oh, you're poisoned, here you are. Or, oh, you've got broken ribs. This is what happens now.
I think one thing is also, it's also coming from my gaming experience, because I've been playing since I was 9 as well. And one thing that always struck me is that it's just really tough to keep track of all of those things on a character sheet. if you're working with a pencil, sometimes the character sheet becomes dirty, and it gets dirty and tougher to read. And even if you're working with a digital sheet, it's just a lot of bookkeeping you have to do. And those kinds of cards make it a lot easier to keep track of those kinds of things. And also, they allow you to actually add some explanation and mechanics on the card, so you don't have to reference the pages all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have
And
to
weapon attributes. Weapon attributes are cool because every weapon has like multiple attributes, which includes like brutal, vicious, impaling, massive, armor penetrating. And as you discussed this morning, we were talking about that momentum, right? So when you roll more successes than are required, you'll get momentum, and you can spend that immediately to use those weapon attributes to really land devastating attacks, maybe even chopping off an opponent's arm. And what each of those attributes can do is presented on those cards as well. And most of the weapons have one or multiple of those attributes that you can make use of.
That is a really neat way to go, because one of the things that we talk about on the morning grind quite often is sometimes the difficulty of coming up with stuff on the fly. Like, okay, so you're talking about a critical hit.
Yeah.
Okay, an easy way to do a critical hit is like double damage. Okay, because you just roll it away. You don't have to think about it beyond that. But if you're going to come up with something beyond that, it's better, I think, to do the kinds of thing that you're doing rather than saying, okay, come up with something really cool to do with your sword.
Yeah, and
think
it's actually interesting to note that not long before the release of the primers, I made a big change because of something I discovered during playtesting. The weapon attributes were actually first described very precisely. Like, this is what happens when you spend one momentum. And I just completely removed it entirely, and I made it much more loose and like interpretable for the players to do fun stuff. Because during playtesting, all players automatically started asking for, I want to spend momentum to this. Can I spend my momentum to that? And like, let's do it, let's go. Why have these like super... So when you have the weapon with the brutal attribute, for instance, it just gives you some cues, like you're chopping, you're cleaving, maybe it's in the shoulder, maybe it's their arm, maybe it's their leg. It gives you some guidelines as to how much extra damage you'll do for each momentum. But at the same time, it doesn't impose an exact description of what will happen. It still provides you only the tools to come up with your own cool idea based on that weapon attribute. So that was changed completely, and for the better, I have to say, because now players feel, and of course it's always up to the Doomsayer, which the GM is called the Doomsayer in this game. They can that's so fun about the momentum. You can always say, like, I have a weapon with the brutal attribute. Can I maybe do something like this? And as long as it's in line with the idea of what this brutal weapon is, which is usually like a battle axe or like a claymore sword, then sure, go right ahead. And because weapons don't just deal damage, and they have these different combinations of weapon attributes, there can actually be, I think, how many, Dirk? How many swords are there in the game? Maybe 12 or 6. There's maybe 12 or 6. A lot of different swords, ranging from the katana to the jian to the scimitar to the odachi to the claymore. And they are all unique. And not because they deal different amounts of damage necessarily, which they also do to some extent, but because they have these different combinations of weapon attributes that make them all unique. And that's a lot of fun, especially for people who are kind of like gearheads who want to look into this equipment list and be like, I want to get this sword, maybe I want to get the claymore, and but for the next battle I'm gonna get out my warhammer because I really want to do that powerful attack and smash everybody against the wall or something like that.
I think I'd like to add two things to that. One thing is that if you don't have that kind of thing, what always happens is that your weapons always just deal this amount of damage, and unless the players really put in an effort to do some narration, and the game master or Doomsayer in our case narrates what happens, mechanically they're all the same. They're kind of samey, and there's not a lot of difference between different weapons, because the only thing that really distinguishes them is the damage they do.
Yeah.
And we definitely wanted to avoid that and give it some more substance and make it easier to put in that narration and help people along. And I think that's baked into the design philosophy of the entire game, is to help people narrate and immerse their players in the setting, and players immersing the game master, the Doomsayer also. It works in both ways. And the way you do that is to give options, give examples of the options, but don't make the examples, I guess, mandatory, but just provide them. And if people want to roll, then they're perfectly fine. We're perfectly happy to have them roll on the table and then pick whatever result they get. But in the entire game philosophy, the entire game philosophy is about just giving options and then still leaving that room for your own interpretation. And I think that's kind of what we try to do, is kind of strike that balance between a more narrative game and a crunchier simulationist game. Because oftentimes when you have narrative games, they're so open that you get discussions at the gaming table, and when you don't use, when you don't provide people with examples, then sometimes it becomes like a discussion, and sometimes you can spend minutes just trying to go over, okay, can we do this in the game? And when you have more simulationist games, sometimes they become unrealistic because they're trying to be simulationist, and because sometimes you get results that would not be possible to get in real life. And by trying to find a balance and leaving that room, I think the game actually feels a lot more immersive than many of the other tabletop role-playing games I've played, and I've got about 250 of them upstairs because I review games as well.
Oh my God, it's crazy what he has in his home.
I feel you. I don't think I'm quite there, but I feel you on the review.
You're on your way. You're on your way. We can tell you're on your way.
So the Blood and Doom project is a massive project for multiple reasons, and one of the things is that it's its own rule system as well as its own world. So this is both a world game rule design project and a world building project. So I want to talk about both. I want to get into the world building in a moment because we didn't talk about that as much this morning. But on the subject of the game design, why undertake a rules design? Because I've had this discussion when I'm designing projects or doing projects with people. What was the motivation for undertaking the whole game design rather than adopting one of the tons? You're talking about tons of systems that are already out there to build the world.
I can immediately answer that because Ferruccio just GM'd way too many Call of Cthulhu sessions and his sanity is very low.
Yeah, I'm crazy. So, no, it's. I mean, first of all, I did not want it to be a 5th edition supplement or something like that. I wanted to create my own game. That was the whole purpose, actually. The setting, even though it already was there in the beginning a little bit, actually came after I started designing the rule set long ago. My idea was in the beginning to create my own rule set and to have something that I would be happy with and that I would want to present at the table and that I would want to play with my group, because I simply wasn't entirely happy with what I'll just be honest with what 5th edition was doing for me, and it wasn't after I started playing games like Call of Cthulhu, Powered by the Apocalypse games, Fate Core, even all kinds of games in Numenera, that I tried out and I realized, like, you know, there can be so much more room to move and maneuver, and something just started brewing, and I just felt like, you know, these games are all cool. Now I want to have something that can work for a fantasy setting, and it just be my own thing. And then at first I had the idea, like, you know, maybe we'll add on some setting and it will be maybe like 20 pages, 20 pages in the book. And now I think the setting, including the cults, is like over 700 pages of the total package that you're getting with the 3 books. So yeah, that kind of got out of hand as it grew, because Dirk started asking me questions. And I remember when we were first talking with Darren and Jason Walters, they started to asking me all kinds of fairly critical and fair questions, like, hey, Ferruccio, it's pretty cool what you're doing, but have you thought about this, and have you thought about this? And me being new to the whole game development experience, I was like, okay, yes. So, and we started developing the world more and more and more. I always had the idea that it would not be a standard Tolkien-esque Arthurian Western European setting. I always wanted it to be more inspired by, for example, ancient Persia, Arabia, like the Far East, Japan, Malaysian culture, Egyptian cultures. I mean, there's no direct correlation within the game, but just doing something different for once, because why create another setting that's about castles and green rolling hills when there's already 1,000 of them that you can buy, right? You don't need me to write that for you. And I feel now we created some kind of a world that spans vast deserts, jungles. There's such a rich and interesting and infused with magic and also a great darkness with the cults. It just became its own thing. And I think that even though there's, of course, some games out there that have a similar, more different kind of setting, to do it in such a big way and really present it all the way from top to bottom, like all the details, work that out, the history, and it just be something else than what you usually get to play. And that started to take form, and that kind of turned into what it is today. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers your question. So it grew slowly is the short answer. It grew slowly. We didn't just decide one day, let's make such, because at first it was one book, right, Dirk? The game.
Yeah,
the game was one book.
The people Ferruccio are talking about. So we're not the only writers. All of the other writers have won Annie Awards, and they're all dear friends of mine. And the first two people on board were Darren Watts and Jason Waters, both of whom have done a lot of work for Euro games and Champions. But Darren, for example, has written a lot of stuff for the Doctor Who role-playing game, a lot of other games as well. And both of them are amazing human beings, or were, I should say. And big shout out to both of them, because I feel we have a very important legacy, because some of Darren's last work is in our game. Darren sadly passed away at a far too early age. And he was an amazing human being. And it's just an amazing honor to have some of his last work in the game. And we tried to do it justice. And Jason just lost his father, so big shout out to Jason as well, who just went through a difficult time. And he's still on board and doing great work for the game. We have Jason Durrell, who worked on heaps of different games, like the Conan game from Modiphius, like RuneQuest. So many different role-playing games he's been involved in. It's just amazing. We have Michael Serbrook. So it's an amazing writer team. And even when they were going through their own struggles, they put in amazing work. And I noticed that I've been using the word amazing too much, but we have been very, very blessed by the work they put in. And I remember that when we first started those discussions, Ferruccio was telling us, we have to keep it small enough and concise. And we said, well, maybe we should add this and this. And Ferruccio really took our advice to heart, and it became just such a sprawling project, and it started expanding and expanding. But we're so happy with the end result, and we think it's very extensive and very complete, even though we're going to do supplements and other stuff. We think it's a very, very expensive setting that people will love.
Yeah. It needed something special, right, to distinguish itself from other games. And I think that really got added with doing the world like this, and also the cults, focusing, making it to some extent about these 12 cults that really have it in for this world and really are seeking to destroy it or take it over, control it, or whatever their purpose is. It varies between each of them. And to do that and mix it in with this wondrous and magical world of Aether, I think that's really fun. And a lot of people like this mix of that there's a threat looming in the background. That's the feeling that you have with this game. Things are beautiful. There's monsters in the world. There's bad things going on anyway. But in general, it's still a good place to be, but not for much longer.
I was going to say not for much longer, right? Because it's
yeah, and that's where the characters have to step in, and I feel that's a strong message, because even though you can play the game any way you want, you can leave out the cults entirely if you want, just go dungeon delve. But the general message in the setting is, hey, please do something about this. Help out Aether and go out there against all odds. You're probably going to die. It's pretty certain that you're going to die, actually. But you're still going to try, because that's the kind of hero that you are. You're not yet a hero, but you're getting there. You're walking that path. And I just like that message a lot, and I strongly, stand behind it. And that's also why one of the things that I think it was also Darren and Jason Walters who told me, and I'll just keep this brief because we're going on a quite a tangent. They thought there was a trait that the barbarian had, which said, when you die, the Munagi spirits will come to fetch your soul, but you can fight them. And if you defeat them, you can get another chance at life. They told me you have to make this a rule in the game itself. Everybody should be. So now, what happens when you, first, of course, you become dying. People can still get you back to life. You can make one roll. That's it. So it's like basically 50-50. But when you're really dead, then these Munagi spirits will come. An encounter will trigger. The Doomsayer will actually get those Munagi stat blocks on the table. And the other players, not the one who is dead, because they're basically, up for the taking. Their soul is going to be ripped from their body. These spirits are going to do that. They're going to take this soul from your body, and then your party members can try and save you by defeating the Munagi. You'll get another chance at life. Of course, you'll get some penalties for the second, and it won't go on like that forever. But this concept is quite fun. At least I think it's...
It also gives players who are out something to do, because oftentimes when your character's dying, that's it. There's nothing left for you to do at the gaming table. And that was also a way to make sure that even players who are out and whose characters are dying still are involved in the game and still adding and are still adding to the narrative. I think,
but they're dead, right? They're not dying. At that point, they're actually dead. So.
Exactly. Yes, true. I'm sorry. So, and that's one of the reasons why Darren called it an operatic fantasy, which I think is still a great term to describe the game. Yeah, Darren came up with operatic fantasy, and I think that's a term I like to use as well.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds really neat, especially that it's your teammates that help fight it off. I thought you were going to say that you personally, like the dying guy, his spirit has to fight them off. That's pretty neat.
No, it's the others. Yeah,
you participate. You can your soul can come out of your body to participate, and if the other party members can't reach the Munagi, then you're fighting alone. But as long as they can reach the Munagi, you can fight together.
Okay, let's mention. I do want to mention the primers, and then we'll get into more about these cults, because another major part of this project. Not only do you have the books coming out, but what we looked at this morning, and with all this material, was actually the primers for the game system and for the worlds. And those are not lightweight books. They're fully laid out. They got the art in them. You got all of that there. I mean, I'm talking about writing world primers here on the channel, and I've been trying to get 10,000 word primers done. But you guys are writing tens of thousands of words and hundreds of pages, I suppose, are in those primers.
More than
500 pages in the primers. So if you want that, you can download that from the link is on the Kickstarter page. You put the Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's from DriveThruRPG. You can find the link on the Kickstarter, and if you go to DriveThruRPG and you type in Blood and Doom, make sure you use the word "and" A-N-D instead of the symbol. Then you'll find it. It's totally free. Just download it, see what you think, play the game, and also a first free adventure which is already been sent out to our backers is also going to be available on DriveThru. I think tomorrow, maybe during the weekend. So that gives you something to immediately
pages.
Play.
That's another 112 pages. So we're 600 plus pages I read 600 plus pages of free
It's
stuff.
people have called us a little bit crazy for this, and I'm still not sure if it was a good idea to do it this way. But I feel like I've got nothing to hide. I want to show the people the game the way it is, and make an informed decision about whether you like it or not, and whether you maybe want to purchase it, and just have a look at all of it before you buy it. It's a free to play version of the game. It is fully playable. It does not, of course, include everything that will be in the final game, because there still has to be something, that you need to want to, for example, some extra classes. Yeah, okay, especially regarding to the setting. But the rules function quite well as they are now. You don't, aside from some traveling rules that we'll add later, but and I think so far the comments about it have been really positive. So that's a great experience to see
about
people
5,000 downloads, I believe. It's at the prime bundle.
Something like this, yeah.
5,000 times.
It seemed like it was well received because, yes, it is on Drive-Thru RPG. I was looking at that this morning, and I forgot about that too. But it's on Drive-Thru RPG. The primer is, and there's all kinds of comments actually on the Drive-Thru RPG page about people talking very positively about it. Okay, so I thought it was interesting that we got the game rules. This is new rules and the world building. But you said the world building came second, because I've been thinking about the way I was doing that in the reverse with me. I was like, I've got these worlds I want to do, and then what rule system am I going to use? Or if I were going to write a rule system, how would that go? But it went reverse for you guys. Mm-hmm. So tell us about the world and the 12 cults. We do like cultist stuff around here, here in this on this channel. So what is
you're gonna love that book. It's called Doomsayer's Codex, the 12 Pillars of Doom. I call it adding the horror, because you've got the entire setting information in the Guide to Hatir. And then separately, as Ferruccio said, you have a book that really details all of the 12 cults and the hells of doom they worship. So it's like extra-dimensional entities. And each of the cults worships its own entity. And one thing we wanted to do is to make all of the cults entirely unique. And then I think Ferruccio came up with the idea of how to structure the cults, because we all had ideas of, Ferruccio came up with the names for the cults, and then we were all to input our own ideas. But Ferruccio, maybe you should tell Yves a little bit about how the cults are structured, because
the thing is, as a forever GM, I kept, because Dirk and all the others are great writers and they can write really well, and I kept telling them, we're not writing a book, we're writing a tool set for a GM. Mm-hmm. It should be something that has information that's super easily digestible, yet rich and deep, and that is structured in a way that you can easily find the information that you need and actually do something with it. For example, also the Guide to Hatir is written in a way almost that you can just put it at the table and just run a game straight from it. Meanwhile, most other setting books that I know require you to read them and then go prep your sessions from them and then run them at the table. So we tried to close that gap a little bit more, so that it either becomes very easy to prep or maybe even not even necessary to prep. And in the 12 Pillars of Doom, we found a way to use Doom levels. And these are a metagame term, so you won't be talking to your players about a Doom level, but just for the Doomsayer, it starts out with, how is the cult formed? How does it even come into existence, right? How does one all of a sudden start to worship this entity? And it's actually quite fun to read how that slowly builds up. Some individuals find it. There's another cult that is, its Herald of Doom reaches out to the cultists through dreams and makes them dream, and then they kind of go and seek out their cultist destiny. And then you have these Doom levels that describe, what is the cult trying to do? How are they going to do it? What kind of rituals are involved? What kind of ancient lore and texts or artifacts are they looking for? And then you can build an entire adventure or a campaign around it. It includes all the monsters that they might be able to summon. It includes the spells that they are able to cast. And all those things start to increase in power or are added to as the cult keeps reaching their goals they increase those Doom levels, and they'll learn new spells. They'll maybe acquire new abilities that they can do. They become stronger, and each time their plan also changes. They're not always trying to do the same thing. The first part of their plan might be to do this, and then once they reach that goal, they're off to do something else. And in the end, of course, the grand climax is quite often summoning their Herald of Doom in some way into reality, close to a tier or into a tier. And then when that happens, it's basically game over. And that's the whole idea for the player characters, to try and prevent this from happening. So
as a writer, it was also a very liberating experience to really delve into those horror elements, because I'm a big horror fan. I grew up with H.P. Lovecraft and Clive Barker and Stephen King and Peter Straub and all of those great horror writers. And I did a lot of public relations for cult movies, for horror movies. I did so many Q&As for the Brussels International Fantastic Film Festival. We actually went to the Razorhill Film Festival, which is a big genre festival here in Belgium, to promote the game, which was a lot of fun. And I guess all of those elements really came together very neatly. We're all Call of Cthulhu fans, and so many other great horror games are there. And it was great to pick elements, not pre-existing elements, but kind of give each cult its own identity and go out with some of the bloody, gory descriptions that we were able to come up with, and just take it as far as we could.
But that being said, I want to emphasize it's not overly gory necessarily for the sake of it, because the things that you wrote that actually scared me the most weren't gory at all.
Oh yeah.
But it was like a subtle. There was something beneath the surface in that text, the intro text for the Yukashin cult. And when you know what this cult is trying to do, and you read that intro text, it seems like a normal story, and then it ends, and you're like, "Oh my God, this is really horrible! What is happening here?" But it's very underneath the surface. And that was really amazing. So
I think that's very important. It's very important. I think writers like Stephen King do that a lot. For example, to set up a mundane family life, for example, and then increase the tension level and get some insidious information in there. I think that's definitely something that we were able to do, and which is a lot of fun, and also shows people how to gradually increase the horror, to really get that suspense in there, not just go all out right away, because then you lose impact.
And also, not all of the cults operate this way. I think that the Yukashin are actually a good example of a cult that has quite a bit of gore in it. But the Shaddai, on the other hand, they're all about dreams, and they're trying to build these idols that represent their Herald of Doom. And by building these and doing these sacrifices, they will be able to locate where their Herald of Doom is imprisoned, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to free this extra dimensional entity, and when in doing so, they hope to become the masters of the world, ruling it next to or side by side with the entity that they worship. And there's actually not much gore in that particularly cult in the descriptions, because they're all about dreams and sculpting these images and receiving power from their master, who is calling out to them in dreams from an unknown place that they're trying to find.
We should say that all of those cults, or most of the cults, are working off texts that they found, or that their founders found, from the alien base that actually accidentally let the extra-dimensional entities into our reality. And they have human motivations. So many of those texts got misinterpreted, sometimes on purpose, mistranslated. And most of these cultists think that they're doing good work, or a lot of them think that.
It's the fun part. It's the fun part. The warnings, right? They were actually warnings, but give or take 1,000 years, and things get translated into, powerful beings. That sounds like maybe something we could worship, and yeah, so there's that.
Well, let me ask you about the implementation here. Actually, should I bring this up? One of the 12.
Yeah, sure, that would
Okay,
be great.
because one of the things that we do talk about on the show, and one of the things or that's come up several times, especially in the morning grind, is sometimes how much, especially if you're running online, the amount of work it can take to be a GM, but also in general, the theme that we talk about is what's the most we can do with the least. Now, you guys, you guys have clearly written a whole lot here, but I wanted to key in on your idea here that okay, the goal was to get the game master, the Doomsayer in this case, running a game quickly, and you said you structured in this. So let me bring up the 12. Was it? It's not 12 cults. It's called
the 12 pillars.
The 12
Doom.
pillars. And can you talk more about how you structured this then to actually get people playing fast with little, or even you even said no prep?
Yeah, well, the no prep thing applies more to the setting, because the 12 pillars actually gives you the tools to build an adventure around one of the cults. Meanwhile, the Guide to a Tier is a setting book that drops you right into the middle of the cities, the points of interest, the hex maps, the traveling, the discovering things, and it's all right there on the pages. But this is the 12 pillars of Doom, and I think still there's enough here that's structured in a way to make it easy for the Doomsayer.
Okay, let's take a look at this cult structure then. What should I look at?
Yeah, you can, if you want to go, you can immediately skip to, for example, here you can go click on About the Cult, page 25, and you'll immediately skip to or page 22.
Okay,
and then yeah, so that's immediately the first one. So it talks a little bit about the history first. You can just skim through them because they're like, I think 30 pages each, maybe. Their doctrine, what are they all about? Their main objectives, so what are they trying to do? In the case of this cult, what they're trying to do is their Herald of Doom, Daos is its name, got dispersed by the gods when he entered this universe. So he's kind of like a broken entity scattered throughout the universe, even blocking the light from some of the stars in the sky. And this cult is trying to kind of assimilate Daos back into one gruesome entity, invite it into the world so it may absorb all living beings, so that everyone, the cultists themselves and all other living beings can be one with Daos. But in their mind, it's kind of like a transcendental experience. Or a transcendence, but in reality, it will only cause pain and suffering and agony, as Daos is, of course, malignant and will just feed on their souls for eternity as it grows larger and larger. So there's a little bit about the recruitment. How does the cult get new members? Daodian is a special sort of secret language that they have developed, which is unique to, for example, this cult.
It's like a sign language. It's a coded language.
And then you can go on, I think. Yeah, so here's the 5 ranks. You start out as an initiate. Of course, there's many processes and rituals involved that are all determined by the high priest and the lectors, who then teach these initiates how to become disciples of bones, the priests of the Ichor. Okay. And that is a kind of a special rank. The 3rd rank becomes some of the priests of the Ichor will actually go, and because this cult creates in their lair a chamber of flesh, there's a whole story behind this, and those priests, some of them are selected to go to sleep in this chamber of flesh, and Daos will actually select one of them to become like the chosen, who will then be the centerpiece of a ritual that they will do, sacrificing 6 victims in order to have this chosen person become a receptacle, which is like a giant pillar of flesh and bones and blood. And this cult is trying to create 3 of those in a special triangle. And once that happens, Daos will be able to come into the world. And you can build your entire campaign around that. And it kind of explains how that all works here as well. The lector is a pretty high ranking. Those are like the teachers of the cult and the ones who kind of go out and attract new members, but potentially not necessarily weak-minded people, but I guess vulnerable people and in just a very vicious way, trying, as cults do, they prey upon those people and get them into the cult. So they're kind of the teachers and the ones who get people into the cult, and the high priest is the leader. And I think the next page will become this talks about Dials itself. You can just skip by this. It's an explanation, and the more structured stuff comes later. So here's an overview of the monsters. You can also see available at Doom level 1. So that's the ghoul, and it also describes later in this chapter what the ritual is that the cult performs in order to get these ghouls under their command. The flesh demon comes later. They won't be able to summon the flesh demon at first, but that comes later, and an abomination at the same level. And then finally, they will also be able to summon the mouth of Dials, which you can see artwork on the next page, which is quite I mean, you don't want to encounter this because it's probably gonna kill the party, or at least drive them insane. As you can see, this poor individual being. And then, and of course, stat blocks for all these are provided later in the book, and also as separate sheets, so you can use them. The many faces, the receptacle. You can skip by this. I think go to the point where the Doom. Here, this is where the Doom level starts. So here it explains the origin of the cult, what its objectives are in the beginning. For example, you can see strengthening the cult's first chapter and lair, raised their first receptacle of Dials from among appointed priests of the Ichor. And then it also explains how that evolves, what do they need, how are they going to try and obtain this. Maybe Dirk, you want to fill in as well if I'm missing anything.
No, I think you're doing a great job at summarizing all of this.
Yeah, because there's so much information. You can here see the layout of the layer, and of course everything here is entirely free for the Doomsayer to change up how they want it. But it's like these are like it's like a guide of how it like usually goes. But as far as anything in this chapter regarding the spells that the cult knows, you can change that, of course, however you want.
I think one thing that was really important to us was also come up with those corrupting effects to really give a sense of how much of an impact these cults end up having. Because as the Doom level rises, usually there will be changes, not just within the cult itself, but also in the entire territory surrounding their lair or whatever place they're based at. And they also, these corrupting effects will often change the lands, but also the people on them, and have a mental impact or even a physical impact on the people there. And
here you
I
can
think
see
that
the
was
boons.
really there was a lot of fun to come up with, and to really give that sense of dread and insert the cult in the setting and make it an integral part of what Altair is about and what the game is about, if you choose to include the cults in this matter.
Yeah, at higher Doom levels, it becomes quite horrible. It influences the minds of people in a very large area at later levels. It depends on the cult, of course, what happens. So here you see the suggested climax, and also what would happen should the cult maybe fail. Maybe the characters stop their ritual or manage to do anything to thwart them, and it also explains what the cult will then do. Will they pick back up the pieces and go on? Will they start from scratch? Will they have like a plan B?
I think from a gaming perspective, it also increases the sense of urgency, because the thing that I hate railroading. I do not like railroading my players as a GM. I do not like adventures that railroad your characters too much. But if you just heighten the tension, if you raise the stakes, then often they'll get motivated to do something, and it becomes a more natural, organic process because of what's happening, and because the characters and the players will want to react to something instead of forcing them to do that. They're still allowed to do whatever they want. But I think raising the stakes, it's something that I learned as an acting coach and as a writer, and I think it's definitely very much ingrained in how the cults are structured and how the Doom levels are structured.
yeah, they will. If they're not stopped, it's not gonna be pretty. Here's the texts, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
also one of my fun parts. It's like, so there's many options, and you can pick and choose whichever ones you want. For example, now we've written the Faces of Evil adventure, and this cult. Actually, for people who are interested, it would be kind of nice to. Minor spoiler alert for those who don't want to know.
People who are gonna play the game.
Yeah, so
Just cover your ears for about
for a
30
few seconds.
There will
But
be spoilers coming up now.
Yeah, so the Faces of Evil adventure is based on the Yukushin cult. You can actually see how we created the adventure using the tools that are in this chapter and just selecting a few of those bits for it, not including all the artifacts, not including all the texts. The cult is still at Doom level 1. And you can kind of see how you can go from what's in this chapter to a fully fledged out adventure. And even we just use this as a tool to make that adventure because that's what it's there for. Yeah, so these are the step blocks. In the sheets, the separate sheets for the step block, each step block has like an encounter tracker underneath where you can keep track of the bruises and the wounds for like 4, 6, or 8 of those monsters or cultists, which is extremely handy to have and to just print out and have beside you. And I think that concludes it.
That's
and then you
amazing.
get into the Shaddai, which
and
is
then you do it all again with the next one. Look at this art.
Yeah. And we'll do 12 of those. And there's now 2 in the primers. And if you're interested in still looking at something that's really playable at the table immediately, the guide to a tier will be a little bit.
Let's look at it briefly. If you have a few more minutes, let's look at it briefly, and then I'll also say we'll look at that briefly, and then if other people have questions in the chat, we'll look at this, and then I'll or if you post them up above, repost them or something like that, and we'll take 2 or 3 questions then, or 3 or 4 questions from the audience if anybody has questions to ask. So let me bring up the other book then. So you want to tell us what we're about to look at?
So the guide to a tier is the world building. It's the regions of the world. It's the people, the cultures. It's the cities, the traveling, the hex maps, points of interest, travel encounters. Each location has its own local cuisine, the specialties that you can. There's goings on. Basically. Actually, it looks pretty identical to how I just used to make my gem notes. That's what this book exactly looks like. It's structured in exactly the same way. And I hope that people will be able to, really translate that quickly into a session and just keep that with them. So if you go to...
Okay, let's see how you did that then.
Yeah, so you can go to... for example, which one is nice, Dirk? You think Etenia or Ishtar? Let Heath decide. You want to go into the desert or into the jungle?
Let's go desert.
Okay, then you click on Etenia.
Etenia. All right.
Yeah. So first, the region itself, an overview. I think next up is some history, and Dirk did a lot of writing for this.
Beautiful map.
Should be mentioned. He did a lot of. I gave him ideas, and he really wrote some fantastic stuff on this. And here you see the sub-regions, and that's where it gets interesting because Etenia is one of 5. Well, actually, there's 7 regions, but 5 main regions, and Etenia is one of them. It's like a big desert, but it has 5 sub-regions, and each of those sub-regions are as large as Europe, basically. So they're all detailed there with their own hex map. So there's so many levels of depth in how deep you can go into this world. Here it shows the gods that are commonly worshipped there, a language overview, and those gods will be detailed more in the final books, of course. And so the Volgar Plains is one of those sub-regions of Etenia. And it explains the history. It then goes to an overview, and I think it can be worth scrolling on a bit. This is the hex map.
That's your sub-region hex map. Okay.
Exactly. So minor spoilers for those who want to play this, but if you can keep this on for just a second, you can see those points. You can see those points of interest. So you have the cities: Samora, Tamon, Azul, Turan, Ashar, and below there is Nakbu. And then all those other ones like Nuldur Am, Mel Daharat are points of interest, the 10 statues. And each of those sub-regions has those laid out, and you can travel to them and find interesting things there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this actually started as did a lot of the writing we were doing. It was, for example, Ferruccio pitching some ideas, us writing some fluff for the setting. Then Ferruccio telling us, well, maybe this is too much. Maybe we should condense it, and then telling us, hey, maybe we should also do this, and
I
add
know,
that, that.
the first way is yeah. Oh, here is where it becomes playable, by the way. So there's the point of interest. Should players visit it?
Yeah.
You'll have a story about it, and you'll have secrets and rumors. And none of them are specifically true. Actually, they're all three of them are different, but who knows? And it gives you some ideas of what might be going on there. And you can build some a session or maybe even an entire adventure around that idea.
Yep.
And then here's another one, and it also has its own secrets and rumors.
All right.
And we should also tell people who are downloading this and liking it, this definitely is only a small part of the setting. And it's a big part, obviously, because it's so many pages, but we're adding the other sub-regions as well. So it's not even the entire of Eternia and Ishtar. There's other sub-regions where actually
People
exploring.
and
then there's the other regions.
And these are also quite handy to have as like at the table, because we haven't released the travel rules yet, which we'll do within a week or so. And that plays into these travel acts. You'll be rolling random encounters, and there's obstacles, there's events, there's 6 types. And this gives you ideas for many of them that you can roll randomly as players travel from one hex to another. There's conflicts, and then I think there's interactions, and then there's encounters, flora and fauna, and landmarks. Yeah, so those are like more like dungeon type things that can be explored.
And I believe in the final version we're actually gonna add to those, because I think these are like 4 examples.
We need a few more for each, I think. And this is a city, so one example, and there's multiple cities already laid out, so it gives you the basic information here. There's some read aloud text. I think it's nice to have something that you. Let's say players say, I want to go to Tamon, and you're the GM, and you're like, oh my God, what? You can just tell them, you just read this little bit. And then if you scroll on for a little bit, you can see ad-lib it, of course. And then there's overview and layout, which is, of course, some background information. But if you continue on to the next page, you'll get into the really useful stuff, like the goings on, right? So what do you see on the streets of Tamon? Well, there's 10 things here that you can use and to describe the city, and those are going on at that moment.
Some customs, the same way. So you can either roll, or you can just use them as examples and inspiration. So
or roll.
So that's exactly what I was saying. So and what Ferruccio has been saying, they serve as random tables, but also just as inspiration. You do not have to roll. You can just use them as examples as well. And that's something that's, as I said before, that we really wanted to get right.
Yeah.
And it's very much ingrained in the entire design.
And these are the kind of things that I used to write in my notes. So that's directly translated into notes for my own sessions. And here's some key locations, because I find in many setting books you have a city, but it just doesn't tell you what's in the city. So there's different establishments here described.
And NPCs coming up as well.
Yeah, they're coming up next, and then there's also, of course, quest hooks or plot quest hooks, right? Or plot hooks, quest hooks. Yeah. So you see here what's going on.
And also very important things happening as well after that, just like the earth shaking. Important events, because it's still
Threats and Doom. Threats and Doom is
you can't have a city in here without in Blood and Doom without Threats and Doom for it.
This is one of the cities that has only one. Most of them have 2, and it's a bigger quest. So you have these quests that are kind of fun to do, and then the Threats and Doom is something that's like looming beneath the surface that could function as like an idea for an entire campaign. And I have to give Dirk some props for writing, especially for each of those quest hooks, and I think maybe in the book there's already like 40 or 50 of them, he wrote some very original rewards for each and every one. There will be no, you'll just get a bag of gold or whatever. The players will be appointed some kind of function within the city, or they'll get property, and now they'll also have to pay taxes. And there's kind of these little fun jokes in there. But they'll have some rewards that are actually fitting and thematic with the city and the quest that they've undertaken.
I actually came up with that just by looking at history, because that's what really happened. People who
not always gold, maybe,
they didn't always just get a gold reward, but they got, for example, land or a title, and that's definitely something I wanted to include to make the road feel real and more interesting.
Yeah,
and obligations that come with that. Yeah. Absolutely.
And the same structure, Heath, is used for many of the other cities here, and this is just still one of the sub-regions.
I know, just keep going on and on.
Yeah. And then there's 5 of these sub-regions just in Athenia, which is one of the 5 regions. I mean, I'm just hoping that we can cram it all into those 375 or 400 pages. But now you understand why we went from 1 book to 3.
So many projects like this grow as you're doing it. And I mean, this is how long did this take to create?
2 years.
This is 2 years worth of work.
Yeah,
yes,
and
but the actual writing process was actually, Ferruccio had so much groundwork done, and he had so many ideas written out. But the actual writing process, I guess, was done in a few months.
Yeah, that we kind of sped up a lot to get the primer done. Yeah. But I do want to say that even though the books are very thick, they're not dense, right? It's like you can just pick one region, focus on that, and never bother with the other 4. You can just pick one cult, focus on that, and never bother with the other 11. There's just a lot of options, and it just gives you years and years and years of material to play, ideas to get from. So it's by no means like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into with these large books full of content? No, it's very easy to navigate through them and just pick out what you want, use that, and maybe it's just for an adventure, maybe it's for a 3-year campaign, however you want to use them,
And that's something we also wanted to do with the adventures, because the first adventure is Faces of Evil, and it's a murder mystery, action, thriller, drama, and with lots of action packed inside of one adventure, but also sprawling mystery that features one of the cults. But the second adventure is more like a hex scroll, not just a random hex scroll, but something with an actual story that drives it along, and a lot of background in it that really delves into the jungles of Ishtar, while the first one features the deserts of Athenia, to go with what we're covering in the primer. Right, and to show people what you can do with the information that we're already giving out.
So 12 pillars is the Faces of Evil, and then the Guide to Atir and the Ishtar region will be, the 7 Jewels of Azura. So people will really, with those 2 adventures, which both are free, you can really see how you can use these books to get something playable at the table.
And our backers are actually getting a lot of extra stuff.
Because we're talking a lot, I realize, and maybe Heath, I don't know if you want, because I see many comments in.
Let's go to a couple of questions, or if you've got a question, I've got one here, but let us know, and we'll take a few questions before we wrap up here. Jason, oh wait, that wrong one. That's a good question. That was not one. I was trying to go for Tomocrat right here. Said I might have missed it, but is the world all humans, or are there other races?
Yeah, so it's for playable races, it's only human. It's a human world. You have 5 different origins, and these origins are basically like, where do you hail from? Where were you born, and where did you grow up? Is it Athenia, Ishtar, the islands of Roshan, Evandir, or maybe the Sundered Wastes, which is like a toxic wasteland? So no, it's a human world. So it's a little bit more grounded in that sense. But then again, on like on another level, there's like some humanoid monsters. So I want to make it clear that there's a lot of monsters in the world, and and there's the Beastman, and what are those the troglodytes, Dirk? I forgot their name, or was that their name?
Troglodytes, yes, but
Yeah. So there's those, but
even the monsters that are similar to other monsters, we gave them their own lore, and even skeleton warriors aren't what you usually would expect from traditional skeleton warriors. So we had a lot of classical monsters, and a lot of monsters that are unique to Atir. But even the classical ones, we give different backgrounds and give them some more substance.
Yeah, but you can only play as a human, and I think I kind of prefer it this way. I don't see that changing in the future.
What about here? I was surprised with the aliens. When I did read some of this material on the world stuff, I was like, I didn't know where we were going, but I was surprised we started there. I mean, it was cool. I was surprised we started there. So, but John asks, did the crashed aliens mentioned in the background intermix with the natives of this planet?
They got killed by the natives of the planet.
They got killed. Yeah, they didn't survive. So they were highly advanced technologically and magically. But they came to Atir and they wanted to warn the people about what had happened, about the calamity that they had caused, about the heralds of doom that had now entered the universe. And basically, the natives of Atir, it didn't happen like overnight, but like in I think about 100 years, they were all extinct. Though their artifacts, which are like magically and technically highly advanced, are maybe still littered somewhere around in the world and are highly sought after, though very rare. But they did not intermix with the humans, as far as I know. So far,
exactly. So. Maybe there's like a half-breed around. We
it could be something for future, for the future, but currently no.
And also, I think we wanted to make sure that we grounded the game with actual human motivations. But the Ayari, the alien race, it's called the Ayari. They got killed quite fast after crash landing because they were misunderstood, because their language was so different, because of diseases, because of the monsters on it. They got screwed fast.
Still, the more I look at John's comment, I think there could be a novel in the works focusing on that one romance between the Ayari and one of the.
And also, there's two regions that we're not exploring yet, called Keldor and Taliat, which are remote regions, and Taliat has a lot of pirates. They don't let anyone in. Keldor is even more mysterious. If you want to keep those regions specifically separate because they're so different from all of the other 5 regions. So those are probably going to get their own books.
Yeah.
James asked a question about the mechanics here. James says, I personally love a D10 system that counts successes. World of Darkness is one of my favorite settings and systems. Can I ask what made you go with custom dice rather than standard number D10s? Was it just being mindful of player percentages, or is there some other reason?
No, they're just
and cool factor.
Yeah, they're just fun to have. You really don't need them, So by all means, use regular D10s. An 8 is 1 success, a 9 is 1 success, and a 10 is 2 successes. You need 1 D10 of a different color, because when you roll a failure, you have to check on this setback die if maybe you rolled a 1, 2, or 3, and that's it. And all that the custom dice do is provide empty sides for all the numbers except the 9, the 8, the 9, and the 10, which have like the 1 success and the 2 success symbol, and the setback die, which also features the 1, 2, and 3 with a special setback symbol. So a lot of fun. I think they turned out really nice in the design.
They're beautiful,
but not a requirement at all. And I've been playing Blood and Doom for longer than 1.5 years with just good old D10s, and it works perfectly fine. So don't worry.
I think this is another case of us trying to cater to different kind of gamers. I like custom dice. I like the Star Wars system by Fantasy Flight Games, for example. But we didn't want to force people to buy a custom dice. We wanted to make sure that the game can be played entirely with just normal dice. And that way you still get the coolness factor of custom dice if you want that, and the readability, because I think that's an important part of it as well. Or you can just use your regular dice, no worries.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for coming on here with me. I have loved looking at it this morning and then also talking with you guys about it. What you guys are doing is amazing. The scale and scope of the project is huge. I mean, there's so much here. I'm seriously in awe of what you guys are pulling off here.
Well, we absolutely love
Thank
the
you very
podcast.
much.
So thank you so much for coming on, for letting us come on. It was a lot of fun for us as well.
Let me remind everybody: the Kickstarter link is in the chat and also in the description. I'm going to post it right now again in the chat. I'll just post the link there so you can get directly to the Kickstarter, and then there's a link over there to go if you want to download all of the materials. If you've been interested in looking at the primer, that's on. We said that was Drive-Thru RPG. Access it through the either Search Direct or access it through the Kickstarter page. I think you've got some backers out of this. I was noticing actually, like Ivory Knight, a big fan.
Yeah.
In for over 200.
Spread the word.
Yes,
I know
and I
James
wanted to
joined.
for the people who are backing, also, go to the comment section on Kickstarter. We're very active with our community, talking with people, and they have they've posted suggestions that are now stretch goals, which are completely the idea of the community. So
Absolutely.
feel free to contribute and talk to us. And it's been a great experience so far. My first Kickstarter, and it's a lot of fun.
Is there, I guess we should also say, is there any other place that people can go? I mean, obviously you're saying everybody the Kickstarter page right now, but what social media are you guys or the company most active on or whatever to follow?
Yeah, at Dice Still Games. At Dice Still Games, you'll find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Okay, so
We've been
Dice Still Games.
really less active than usual because of the amount of work that it takes to run the Kickstarter and answer all of those comments, but we're still active on all of those social media, so go ahead and follow us. And there's heaps of posts that date back months to go over to get more of a sense of the game and the artwork and all of the other stuff, and how the game evolved.
All right. Well, all right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
I guess we will wrap up here tomorrow morning, everybody. Please do like, subscribe. I always forget to say, if you've enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe to this stream as well. And if you are coming in because you are looking for Blood and Doom, I appreciate your being here, whether you're live or you're watching on replay. I'm live every morning talking about RPGs and games and stuff like that. And we're talking with creators here in the evenings. So I'd love to have you for more streams. Please do click like and subscribe. I'll be live at 9:30 a.m. again tomorrow morning for the morning grind. And I look forward to seeing everybody there. And thank you both for being here.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.